The gunman's shadow stretched across the pink walls of the bedroom as he raised the weapon toward the sleeping child. Sarah's hands moved before her mind could stop them. One fluid motion. The vase from the hallway table became a weapon. The crack of ceramic against skull echoed through the mansion like thunder. The gun clattered to the floor. The little girl screamed. And in the doorway stood Dante Vitti, the most feared Mafia boss in New York, watching his meek housemaid disarm a trained assassin with the precision of a special forces operative. What happened next would unravel 6 months of careful lies and force both of them to choose between duty and something far more dangerous. Stay with me until the end, because this story will prove that sometimes the person you're meant to destroy becomes the only one worth saving. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. It's a humid August evening in Manhattan, 2023. The Vitti estate rises like a fortress on the Upper East Side, surrounded by 15-foot walls and cameras that track every shadow. Inside the sprawling mansion, crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors that have witnessed more secrets than most people could imagine in a lifetime. This isn't just a home, this is the heart of the Vitti empire, where decisions worth millions are made over espresso and handshakes that seal fates. The staff moves through the halls with practiced silence. Every butler knows which conversations to forget. Every cook understands which meals require extra security. Every driver memorizes routes that change daily. This is Dante Vitti's domain, and nothing happens here without his knowledge or permission. The Mafia boss sits in his study, a room paneled in dark walnut that smells of leather and expensive tobacco. At 47, he has built an operation that controls shipping, real estate, and half the construction contracts in New York City. His dark hair is touched with silver at the temples. His tailored suits cost more than most people earn in a month. But it's his eyes that command attention. They miss nothing. They promise consequences for betrayal. And tonight, like every night for the past 18 years, they carried the weight of a father raising a daughter alone in a world where trust could be fatal. Dante's wife had been dead for 6 years. Cancer, the doctors said, though the grief killed her long before the disease finished the job. She had never wanted this life. Never wanted her daughter Isabella growing up surrounded by men who carried guns and spoke in codes. But love had brought her into the Vitti world, and eventually that world had consumed her. Now Dante raised Isabella alone, a 7-year-old girl with her mother's dark curls and a smile that could soften even the hardest men in his organization. She was the one pure thing in his life, the single person he would die for without hesitation. Everything he did, every ruthless decision he made, every enemy he eliminated. It was all to ensure Isabella would inherit an empire so powerful that no one would ever dare threaten her. The study door opened quietly. Maria, the head housekeeper, stepped inside with practiced deference. She had worked for the Vitti family for 23 years and knew exactly how to navigate Dante's moods. "Sir," she said softly, "Isabella is asking for a bedtime story." Dante glanced at his watch. 8:30. He had a conference call with his captains in Los Angeles at 9, but some things were more important than business. "Tell her I'll be there in 5 minutes," he replied, his voice carrying the gentle tone he reserved only for his daughter. As Maria left, Dante stood and walked to the window overlooking the estate's garden. Roses bloomed in carefully maintained beds. Fountains sparkled under strategically placed lights. It looked peaceful, civilized, beautiful. But Dante knew better than anyone that beauty could hide danger. 3 rival families wanted his territory. Federal investigators had been circling for months, and somewhere in his organization, Dante suspected, there was a leak. Information about shipments and meetings had been finding its way to competitors with troubling frequency. He had assigned his best men to root out the traitor, but so far they had found nothing concrete. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen moved through the mansion's 3rd floor, carrying fresh linens toward the guest rooms. She wore the same plain grey dress and white apron as the other household staff. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun. Her eyes stayed properly downcast when passing any of Dante's men. For 6 months she had been the perfect invisible servant, quiet, efficient, forgettable. Which was exactly what Special Agent Sarah Chen of the Central Intelligence Agency needed to be. The CIA had placed Sarah deep undercover to gather evidence on the Vitti family's connections to international arms trafficking. Her background as fluent in Italian and trained in close protection made her the perfect candidate. She had memorized Isabella's routines, earned Maria's trust, and slowly gained access to more areas of the mansion. Her modest quarters on the 4th floor contained a hidden laptop where she documented everything she observed. Shipping manifests left carelessly on desks, phone conversations she overheard while cleaning, names of associates who visited late at night. She was close to having enough evidence to bring down not just Dante, but the entire network of families working with him. But tonight, Sarah's carefully constructed world was about to explode. She had just finished placing towels in the guest bathroom when she heard it. A soft click that didn't belong. The sound of a window latch being carefully opened. Sarah froze, every sense suddenly on high alert. The 3rd floor east wing only contained Isabella's bedroom and playroom. No one should be accessing that window at 8:45 at night. She set down the linens and moved silently down the hallway. Years of tactical training made her footsteps soundless on the carpet. As she approached Isabella's room, she saw the door slightly ajar, light spilling through the crack. Through the gap, Sarah could see him, a man dressed in black, his face covered except for his eyes. He stood beside Isabella's bed, where the little girl slept peacefully, surrounded by stuffed animals and pink pillows. In his hand was a Sig Sauer with a suppressor, the barrel slowly rising toward the child's head. Sarah's training took over. She had perhaps 3 seconds before he fired. The hallway table beside her held a crystal vase filled with fresh flowers. Her mind calculated angles, distance, force required. Then she moved. The vase became an extension of her arm. She burst through the door with explosive speed. The gunman's head turned at the sound. Too late. Sarah's swing connected with surgical precision, the heavy crystal base striking his temple with enough force to shatter bone. The assassin dropped like a puppet with cut strings. His gun clattered across the hardwood floor. Isabella sat up in bed, her scream piercing the sudden silence. And in the doorway, drawn by the noise, stood Dante Vitti. Time seemed to freeze. Dante took in the scene with the rapid assessment of a man who had survived decades in a world where hesitation meant death. His daughter sitting up in bed, screaming. A man in black sprawled unconscious on the floor, blood pooling beneath his head, a gun lying 3 feet away, and Sarah, the quiet housemaid who barely made eye contact, standing in a combat stance with a shattered vase in her hands, breathing controlled, eyes still locked on the threat. Her posture wasn't that of a terrified servant who had acted in panic. It was the stance of someone trained to neutralize enemies. Dante's hand moved to the weapon he always carried. Behind him, footsteps pounded up the stairs as his security team responded to Isabella's scream. But his eyes never left Sarah. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. The question carried more threat than any shout could have. Sarah's mind raced through options. Her cover was blown. Her mission was compromised. Standard protocol said she should extract immediately, call for backup, disappear into the witness protection pipeline. But Isabella was still screaming in the bed. The unconscious assassin might have backup, and Dante's security team was seconds away from reaching this room. She made her choice. Sarah dropped the vase and raised her hands slowly, palms out. "Central Intelligence Agency," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Special Agent Sarah Chen, and before you shoot me, you should know there might be more of them." Dante's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "More of what?" "More assassins," Sarah replied. "This wasn't amateur work. He came through a 3rd-floor window with a suppressed weapon. Someone paid for professional-grade equipment and reconnaissance. This was a coordinated hit on your daughter." Isabella's screams had dissolved into frightened sobs. Dante's security chief Marco burst through the door, weapon drawn, followed by 3 heavily armed men. The team took in the scene instantly, guns training on Sarah. "Boss," Marco said, his tone urgent. "What happened?" "Check him," Dante ordered, gesturing to the unconscious assassin. "And search the grounds. If she's right, he might not be alone." As Marco knelt to secure the intruder, Dante finally moved. He crossed to Isabella's bed and gathered his daughter into his arms. She clung to him, her small body shaking. "Papa," she whispered. There was a bad man. I know, Bella, Dante murmured against her hair. But he's gone now. You're safe. Over his daughter's head, his eyes locked on Sarah. You. Don't move. Two of his men positioned themselves on either side of her. Sarah kept her hands visible and her breathing calm. She had been in worse situations during her 7 years with the agency, though, admittedly, none had involved blowing her cover to save the child of her target. Minutes stretched like hours. Isabella gradually calmed in her father's arms. Marco finished securing the assassin and searching the room. He found a radio earpiece on the unconscious man and held it up to Dante. "Boss, he's definitely not alone. There's chatter on this channel. Multiple units." Dante's jaw tightened. He passed Isabella to Maria, who had appeared with remarkable speed. "Take her to my room," he ordered. "Lock the door, don't open it for anyone but me." As Maria hurried away with the crying child, Dante turned his full attention to Sarah. His men had placed her in a chair, hands zip-tied behind her back. She sat calmly, still assessing the situation, still calculating her next move. "You're CIA," Dante said. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded. "And you've been in my home for 6 months. Gathering intelligence on your operations," Sarah confirmed. She saw no point in lying now. "But tonight wasn't part of my mission. Your daughter was in real danger." Dante studied her with those dark, calculating eyes. "Why should I believe you didn't set this up yourself? Draw me in. Make me trust you." Sarah met his gaze directly. "If I wanted you dead, there are easier ways. Poison your espresso, tamper with your car, coordinate with one of your rivals. Why would I blow my cover to stage a fake rescue of your daughter?" Before Dante could respond, Marco appeared again, his expression grim. "Boss, we've got a problem. We just found 2 more of them outside. Both dead. Professional hits. Someone's been cleaning up the team." Dante's expression darkened. "Show me." He gestured to his men. "Bring her." They hauled Sarah to her feet and followed Dante through the mansion. In the garden, spotlights illuminated 2 bodies lying near the east wall. Both wore black tactical gear, identical to the man Sarah had stopped. Both had been shot execution style, single bullets to the back of the head. "Someone killed their own people," Marco said quietly. "Either they failed, or someone decided to eliminate witnesses." Dante circled the bodies slowly, his mind clearly working through possibilities. Sarah watched him, recognizing the same analytical process she used when assessing complex operations. This was why Dante Vitti had survived and thrived for so long. He wasn't just ruthless, he was smart. "Boss," one of the younger guards called out, "we found entry points. 3 locations, coordinated breach, all within 60 seconds of each other. This was planned by someone who knows our security." Dante turned to Sarah. "You said professional grade. Who has the resources to mount an operation like this against me?" Sarah considered her options. She was still technically undercover even if her cover was blown. Sharing intelligence with a criminal target violated every protocol she had sworn to uphold. But protocol hadn't accounted for the fact that someone was trying to murder a 7-year-old girl. "The Rinaldi family," Sarah said finally. "They've been meeting with a contractor named Viktor Sokolov, former Russian Spetsnaz. He specializes in high-value target eliminations." Marco cursed in Italian. "The Rinaldis have wanted your territory for 3 years," he told Dante. "If they took you out, they could move on the shipping routes." Sarah shook her head. They weren't trying to take out Dante. They were targeting Isabella. If his daughter dies, Dante loses his mind, he makes mistakes, becomes vulnerable. Then they move in while he's grieving and reckless. The calculation in Dante's expression shifted to something colder, something that Sarah recognized from her files on him. This was the face of a man who had built an empire on ruthless efficiency. "Who," he asked Sarah, his voice deadly quiet, "who ordered the hit on my daughter?" "Viktor Sokolov doesn't work cheap," Sarah replied. "The contract would have cost at least $2 million. And the Rinaldi family doesn't make moves without approval from the old man, Salvatore Rinaldi." Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. The conversation was brief and in rapid Italian. When he finished, he looked at Marco. Get the cars ready, we're going to have a conversation with Salvatore. Then he turned to Sarah. You're coming with us. Sarah raised an eyebrow. I'm your prisoner now. You saved my daughter's life, Dante said flatly, which means you're either the best undercover agent the CIA has ever fielded, or you're telling the truth about tonight. Either way, I want you where I can see you. They returned to the mansion where Sarah's restraints were removed, and she was given a moment to change from her maid's uniform into dark clothing more appropriate for whatever was about to happen. When she emerged, Marco handed her a weapon, a Glock 17. Sarah checked the magazine and chamber professionally, then looked at Dante. You're arming a federal agent? Consider it a field test. Dante replied, If you're lying about tonight, you'll have plenty of opportunities to shoot me in the next few hours. If you don't take them, maybe I'll believe your story. They drove through Manhattan in 3 black SUVs, moving with the kind of coordinated efficiency that Sarah recognized from military operations. These weren't street thugs. They were trained, disciplined, and utterly loyal to the man in the lead vehicle. Sarah sat beside Dante in the middle car. Neither of them spoke for the first 10 minutes. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. What's your plan when we get there? Talk, Dante said simply, then negotiate. Then, if necessary, end the problem permanently. Sarah studied his profile, the sharp jawline, the controlled rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. You're going to kill him. Salvatore Rinaldi ordered a hit on my 7-year-old daughter, Dante replied, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. If I let that stand, every family from here to Chicago will think they can target Isabella. I have to make an example that no one will ever forget. This is why I was sent to investigate you, Sarah said quietly. You operate outside the law. You make yourself judge, jury, and executioner. And yet tonight, you broke protocol to save the child of a man you're supposed to arrest, Dante countered. Maybe we're not so different, Agent Chen. Sarah didn't have a response to that. The Rinaldi estate was in New Jersey, across the river from Manhattan. The compound sat on 20 acres of wooded land, protected by gates and guards who knew to be wary of uninvited guests. But Dante Viti wasn't uninvited. He was expected. The gates opened as their convoy approached. The guards didn't raise their weapons. This told Sarah everything she needed to know. Salvatore Rinaldi wanted this confrontation. Maybe he thought he had the advantage. Maybe he planned to finish what his hired assassin had started. Or maybe he simply underestimated what Dante Viti would do to protect his daughter. They parked in a circular driveway in front of a mansion that tried too hard to look respectable. White columns, manicured lawns, expensive cars gleaming under soft lighting. The architecture of wealth built on violence. Salvatore Rinaldi waited for them in a study that mimicked old-world Italian nobility. Leather furniture, paintings of Venetian canals, a desk that probably cost $50,000. He was older than Dante, maybe 65, with white hair and expensive suit that didn't quite hide the bodyguards positioned at every door. Dante, Salvatore said with false warmth, this is unexpected. Your man tried to kill my daughter, Dante replied without preamble. Tonight, in her bedroom. Salvatore's expression remained neutral. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Sarah stepped forward. She pulled out her phone and showed him photos she had taken of the unconscious assassin. Viktor Sokolov sent a 3-man team. 2 are dead. 1 is currently in restraints at the Viti estate. And I have recordings of your underboss discussing payment to Sokolov's handler. Salvatore's eyes narrowed as he looked at Sarah. Who are you? Someone with excellent hearing, Sarah replied calmly. And excellent memory for faces. I've seen you meet with Sokolov twice in the past month. Once at Brunello's restaurant on the 5th of July. Once at the Marina on the 18th. Both times you handed him envelopes. Both times he left immediately after. Salvatore's facade cracked slightly. He looked at Dante. You bring a woman to accuse me? She's not just a woman, Dante said. She's the person who stopped your assassin from putting a bullet in my daughter's head. And right now she's the only reason I'm talking to you, instead of burning this place to the ground. The room temperature seemed to drop. Salvatore's guards shifted nervously. Everyone present understood that they were seconds away from a bloodbath. Why? Dante asked, His voice controlled fury. "Isabella never hurt you. She's 7 years old. Why would you target my child?" Salvatore was silent for a moment. Then he sighed and poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. "Because you're building something too big, Dante. Your shipping operation, your real estate holdings, your political connections. 5 years from now, the Vitti family will control everything from Boston to Miami. The rest of us will be leftovers fighting over scraps. I needed to stop you before you became unstoppable. And you thought killing my daughter would accomplish that," Dante said quietly. "I thought it would make you careless," Salvatore admitted. "Grief makes men sloppy. Revenge makes them predictable. I could have taken your territory while you were busy hunting shadows." He finished his drink and set down the glass. "But I underestimated your household staff." Sarah felt Dante tense beside her. She recognized the signs, the controlled breathing, the micro-movements of someone preparing for violence. "Boss," Marco said quietly from behind them, "we could leave. Call this settled." "No," Dante said, "we can't. Every family needs to understand what happens when someone threatens Isabella." In one smooth motion, Dante drew his weapon. The sound of the shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Salvatore Rinaldi fell back into his chair, blood blooming across his white shirt. The bodyguards reached for their weapons but froze when they saw Marco, and the other Vitti soldiers already had them in their sights. "It's done," Dante announced to the room. "Salvatore ordered a hit on my daughter. The penalty for that is death. Anyone who has a problem with this decision can speak now." The bodyguards looked at each other. Then, one by one, they lowered their weapons. In their world, the rules were clear. A man who targeted children had crossed a line that invalidated all claims to loyalty or protection. Dante had done what needed to be done. "We'll be leaving now," Dante continued. "Marco will stay behind to ensure everyone understands the new situation. The Rinaldi family will dissolve. Your territories will be redistributed among families who understand that children are off limits. Anyone who disagrees is welcome to discuss it with me personally." The drive back to Manhattan was silent. Sarah sat in the same position as before, weapon still holstered, mind processing everything she had witnessed. She had watched Dante Vitti execute a man in cold blood. She had evidence now that could put him away for life. Her mission had just been handed its conclusion on a silver platter, but she had also watched him respond to a threat against his daughter with a father's absolute fury. She had seen him risk everything to protect Isabella. She had witnessed a world where the law offered no protection, and violence was the only language that predators understood. When they reached the Vitti estate, Dante finally spoke. "You should go pack your things. I assume you'll be calling your handlers." Sarah looked at him. "Just like that? You're letting me walk away?" "You saved Isabella," Dante said simply. "That debt can never be repaid. But your cover is burned. Your mission is over. And I suspect you have some difficult decisions to make about what you witnessed tonight." Sarah climbed out of the SUV and walked into the mansion. Her mind raced as she climbed the stairs to her modest room on the 4th floor. She had evidence of murder. She had testimony that could bring down the Vitti empire. She had fulfilled her mission beyond any expectation her handlers could have imagined. But she had also seen a father protect his daughter. She had stopped a child from being murdered. She had witnessed a world where the rules her agency operated by simply didn't apply. As she reached her door, she heard small footsteps behind her. She turned to find Isabella standing in the hallway, wearing princess pajamas and clutching a stuffed rabbit. "You're Sarah," the little girl said quietly. "Papa told me you saved me tonight." Sarah knelt down to Isabella's eye level. "I did." "Are you leaving?" Isabella asked. "I am," Sarah admitted, "but I wanted you to know that you're safe now. The bad people can't hurt you." Isabella hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter. "Will you come back? Someday?" "Maybe." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "You should get back to your father, sweetie. He's probably worried." Isabella nodded and started to leave, then turned back. "Thank you for protecting me." Then she ran down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. Sarah stood slowly and entered her room. The hidden laptop was still there, containing 6 months of intelligence. The evidence that could destroy Dante Vitti. the proof that would make her career and justify every protocol she had violated. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she opened the laptop and began typing a very different kind of report. 3 days later, Sarah Chen walked into the CIA's New York field office and handed her supervisor a flash drive. "The Vitti investigation is closed," she announced. "Dead end. No evidence of international arms trafficking. Just a legitimate businessman with unfortunate family connections." Her supervisor frowned. 6 months, Chen. You gave us 6 months, and this is your conclusion? "I spent 6 months looking for crimes that don't exist," Sarah replied. "The Vitti family runs legitimate operations. Shipping, real estate, construction. Everything checked out clean." It was the lie she had practiced 1,000 times, the story that would end her career with the agency, the choice that would haunt her for the rest of her life. 2 weeks later, Sarah sat in a small cafe in Brooklyn, wearing civilian clothes and drinking terrible coffee. She had resigned from the CIA. Her handler had accepted her departure with obvious disappointment and subtle threats about what happened to agents who didn't complete their missions with adequate enthusiasm. But Sarah was free. The door chimed as someone entered. Dante Vitti crossed the cafe and sat down across from her. He wore jeans and a plain shirt, looking more like a normal father than the Mafia boss who controlled half of New York. "You resigned," he said. "It wasn't a question." Sarah nodded. "Turns out I'm not cut out for government work." Dante studied her for a long moment. "You destroyed the evidence." Sarah met his gaze. "I wrote an honest report. You're not guilty of the crimes they accused you of, and what you are guilty of, well," she paused. "Sometimes the law doesn't have room for the complexity of real life." Dante smiled slightly. "Is that your professional assessment, Agent Chen?" "Former agent," Sarah corrected. "And yes, that's my assessment." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Dante slid a folder across the table. "I have a proposition for you," he said. "Isabella needs a bodyguard, someone trained, someone capable, someone who has already proven they'll protect her with their life. I'm offering you the position." Sarah looked at the folder without opening it. "You want to hire a CIA agent?" "Former CIA agent," Dante corrected with a hint of a smile. "And yes, because you've already proven something most people in my world never do. You chose to do what was right instead of what was ordered. That kind of integrity is rare." Sarah opened the folder. The contract inside outlined salary, benefits, and very specific rules about protecting Isabella. The number at the bottom made her blink. "This is too much." "You saved my daughter's life," Dante said quietly. "There's no amount that could ever be too much for that." Sarah closed the folder and looked at him. "If I accept, I need conditions. Name them." "I don't participate in your criminal activities," Sarah said firmly. "I protect Isabella, period. I don't run operations. I don't cover up crimes. I don't lie to authorities." "Agreed," Dante said without hesitation. "Anything else?" Sarah leaned forward. "And you don't use me as a shield. I know how your world works. You don't parade me in front of your enemies as proof that you have a former federal agent on payroll. I stay invisible. I stay focused on Isabella." Dante nodded slowly. "I can accept those terms. Do we have an agreement?" Sarah thought about Isabella's small face, her frightened tears, the way she had said thank you with such simple, pure gratitude. She thought about the world that little girl was growing up in. A world where people ordered hits on children, where violence was currency and trust could be fatal. Isabella needed someone to protect her, someone who understood both sides of the line between legal and necessary, someone who had already proven they would choose the child's safety over everything else. Sarah extended her hand. "We have an agreement." 6 months later, Isabella Vitti celebrated her 8th birthday in the gardens of the family estate. Pink balloons floated above tables laden with cake and presents. Children from her private school ran laughing through the roses, while their parents watched from a careful distance. They all knew who Dante Vitti was. They all understood that attending this party came with unspoken obligations, but they also saw how the dangerous Mafia boss transformed into a gentle father when his daughter smiled. Sarah stood at the garden's edge, wearing dark clothing and an earpiece that connected her to the security team monitoring every entrance. She watched Isabella open presents with delighted squeals, saw Dante kneel beside his daughter to help her read birthday cards, observed the simple, normal joy of a child surrounded by people who loved her. Maria approached with a knowing smile. "You know," the head housekeeper said quietly, "when you first arrived, I thought you were just another scared girl trying to make money. I was wrong about you." Sarah kept her eyes on Isabella. "I was wrong about a lot of things too." "Like what?" Sarah thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago, the CIA agent convinced that justice was always black and white, that criminals were simply criminals and couldn't be fathers who loved their daughters, that doing the right thing always meant following the rules. "I thought protecting people meant putting them in prison," Sarah said finally. "But sometimes protecting people means standing between them and a world that wants to destroy them." Maria patted her arm and walked away. In the garden, Isabella spotted Sarah and waved enthusiastically. Sarah waved back, a small smile touching her lips. Dante caught the exchange and walked over. "She adores you," he said. "The feeling is mutual," Sarah replied. "She's a good kid." Dante nodded. "Thanks to you." Sarah shook her head. "I just do my job." "Which is more than I could say for anyone else I tried to hire," Dante admitted. "Most security professionals saw her as a paycheck. You see her as a person worth protecting. That's the difference." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Isabella run with her friends through the roses. The city whispered about the night Dante Vitti had executed Salvatore Rinaldi, about the message he had sent to every family who might think about threatening his daughter, about the mysterious bodyguard who had appeared shortly after and never left Isabella's side. But Isabella knew the truth that the adults preferred to keep hidden. Sarah hadn't become her protector because Dante offered money or power. Sarah stayed because the smallest hands sometimes revealed the biggest truths, that a 7-year-old girl's life mattered more than any mission or career, that doing the right thing wasn't always about following orders, and that sometimes the people we're supposed to destroy become the ones most worth saving. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in the most unexpected moments.